Okay, Sammy H, you're very, very welcome. If you'd like to unmute and share your story, I will give you a warning at 10 minutes. Did you say? Yeah, 10 minutes. So take it away, Sammy.
Thank you, Rita. Thank you. Yeah, it's great to be here. What a joy and a privilege. Always great to be able to give service in this way. So how do I qualify to be here? Well, I have been in excess of 140 pounds overweight all of my adult life. Well over that, a lot of it. My overeating started when I was a very young child. I was brought up in an abusive family. There was no safe place for me to go or be. And remember clearly my first binge when I was 9 years old, and I remember the effect that I got from that binge. And that continued through most of my childhood. Yeah, comfort. I found comfort in food in a world where there was no comfort. And I saw food for most of my life as a supplement for my mother's love, basically. Always overweight. As a teenager, I would have to shop in maternity shops. I couldn't get clothes to fit me. I wanted to look like all the other teenagers, but I couldn't do that. I had to buy clothes in special shops, and the humiliation continued throughout the whole of my life, which I blocked out, which caused more pain. And it was a cycle that I got locked into. So yeah, in my late teens, I would be eating and binging quite often. Would sort of eat during the day, have my meal at night, and then I would be out in the evening and would be eating all over again. I went from binging to eating constantly from the moment I got up to the time that I went to bed. I got many addictive behaviours. It's not just food that I am addicted to, relationships, you know, all manner of things I would use. And I continued like that. I continued like that into my early 20s. I used people, I lied, I stole food, I hid food. I felt deeply ashamed. Sheer fear and shame ran through me like a stick of rock, really. That really is the forces, and not feeling good enough and not being enough, and being told I wasn't enough actually by my parents and other adults in my life. Was relentlessly bullied at school, didn't do well at school at all, was very traumatised from my childhood, and really struggled. Work was my sanctuary. I loved work. I could get money and then I could buy food. And a car was my freedom, and then I could go places to get food. You know, my whole life has been about how I can get, how I can use, what I can use, when I can use it, and using you to get what I want. And that's the addict in me. So that went on for a long time. 25 years ago, I found OA and I came into OA. I loved it because you all loved me, you know. I got lots of hugs and lots of love, and everybody made me feel the way that I'd never felt in my life, you know, unconditional love, not being judged, brilliant. So I just pretended that I was in recovery. I pretended that I was doing what I needed to do. I was incredibly arrogant, incredibly full of self-will. I spoke at a convention in England, stood up in front of thousands of people and spoke about recovery, and I wasn't even in recovery. And then when they wouldn't put out the recording that they'd made of me talking about recovery when I wasn't in recovery, then I got really pissed off, really upset with OA, and left OA. And I was in a very painful place for the next 25 years. And the pain increased and the food increased, and I ended up at around 25 stone, 140, 150 pounds overweight. And I'd become very physically ill. I couldn't walk. My veins were full of fat. I had fat behind my eyes, my legs. I got no feeling in my legs whatsoever. I had pain throughout my body. I came down the stairs in the morning and I couldn't go up the stairs again until when I had to go to bed at night. And it was like, you know, sort of hanging on to the banister and trying to drag myself up the stairs. The madness, I was gluten intolerant, but I was still stuffing the stuff in my body. I would be eating boxes of sugary, creamy things, but I'd have a Diet Coke with that because I had to have a balanced diet. You know, I'd be eating 12 cakes and a can of Diet Coke. It was mad, and I was in a deep, deep denial, and I was deeply dissociated from my body. My body was not connected to my mind and my brain at all. I was successful in all areas of my life. I was a professional woman. I ran multi-million-pound businesses. I was in control of my finances. Everything about me was very successful. I had a really nice house. I drove a really nice car, but I could not control this thing. It was like a monster in a cage, and I just could not keep the door shut on the monster. I couldn't. So, I'd reached this point. I was very, very disabled. I was really, really on the pity pot. It was terrible, all these terrible things that were happening to me. But I didn't want to take responsibility for any of that whatsoever. You know, it was all everybody else's fault. You were all out to get me. You know, the world was a horrible place, and I was really, really ill, and it was nothing to do with me. So I'd met somebody at that convention, actually, the one when I pretended I was in recovery and wasn't in recovery. I'd met somebody then, and they'd remained friends with me over the years. And it was actually her that sat me down and said, "What about your eating and what about the food?" And I swore at her. I said, F you, basically. How dare you? How dare you make me face the reality and take responsibility for my own life? Because as an addict, I never wanted to do that. I lived in a fantasy land. And I was always kind of looking for somebody or something outside of myself to make me feel better, constantly, 24/7. I had a dog, I wanted a cat. I had a cat, I wanted this. I moved, I don't know how many times. I was always looking for a solution outside of myself. So anyway, she kind of made me face this, and she said, "I'm going to slip something in your inbox." And she did. And it was a rehab. It was a rehab in the States, actually, in America. So I did a 10-week boot camp, and I literally went into detox, and it was like detoxing off heroin. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. And for the first 4 weeks of my life, I would go into the kitchen with masking tape over my mouth because I couldn't stop the hand to mouth, the hand to mouth, the hand to mouth. It had become so habitual, this constant eating from the moment I got up to the time I went to bed. I had stuff stashed around the house. I had it hidden in toilet rolls. I had it hidden in the garage. I lied to people. And alcohol too had become sort of quite a chronic second drug of choice that would go down, And in the morning, if I couldn't get my caffeine and I didn't get my sugar, I was like a drug addict. I was rattling. I was literally rattling. And I was not a very nice person to be around. So coming off the sugar and the flour and the other things, caffeine had to go, alcohol obviously. But I wanted to be clean. I decided I wanted to be clean. And I dropped to my knees the morning when I started this, change in my life. I dropped to my knees and I prayed for help. And I was in such a desperate state. I got the ego deflation of death. I was facing my own mortality, and I had a choice. There was nowhere else to go. There was no other choices. I couldn't beat this. It had beaten me. I'd been like this for 43 years and I thought I could get away with it. You know, I was the morbidly obese person who wasn't gonna die. You know, I didn't have a heart attack and I wasn't diabetic. And I was really, you know, I was going to be the healthy, morbidly obese person. You know, I thought I could beat it, but it beat me. I thank God every day for the gift of desperation because I prayed and I meant it. Please help me. I don't know how I'm going to get through this day. What am I going to do without this food? It was felt like raw survival to me. I thought I would die without it. And I didn't know what I was going to do with the time. You know, I was always out for lunch, out for coffee, out for this. And my whole life revolved around food, you know. So I came into recovery. Well, I got clean in a boot camp, but I realised when I came out of the boot camp that I needed, you know, support. So I went back to OA. I didn't want to be there. I have to be honest. There wasn't enough
10 minutes.
recovery. Thank you. There wasn't enough recovery there for me. I was far too good for all of this, you know. I was this and I was that and I was the other. You know, I was in physical recovery, but I was not in spiritual recovery and I was not in emotional recovery. So I came into OA. It was all too good for me. I didn't want to be there. But this voice inside my head said, shut up, give your recovery to these people. And it was a dear fellow who said, you know, just start reaching out to your higher power. And that's what I did. I reached out to a higher power. I've connected with that higher power every day. And I cannot tell you the miracle that has happened in my life. You know, I've lost between 130 and 140 pounds. I don't know. I'm not interested in that. That's not my business. My body's not my business. My weight's not my business. I didn't come in this program to lose weight. I came in this program to get clean and to stay clean and to never have to go there again. And, you know, to me, that's the right way to look down the telescope. You know, the weight in the body, that will sort itself out. None of my business. None of my business. So I hand myself over every day. I surrender every day. I do step 1, 2, and 3 every day. I do every step every day, actually. I work with fellows every day. I work with sponsees every day. I give service every day. It's not about me anymore. You know, that selfish human being that self-obsession, self-seeking, I was everything. You know, I was all of that and some. I'm totally surrendered today, totally surrendered. And I'm so grateful for that. I heard somebody, Kim G actually, shared in a workshop that I was in, you know, I'm like Cinderella. I get to wear a pretty dress and go to the ball every day, every single day. I get to do that. But when I wake up in the morning, you know, I've got 12 hours of untreated addiction there. And before I step out of bed or talk to a person, I have to connect with that power, because that is the only way that I am any use to myself, to you, or to God. You know, I am a helpless, hopeless, dying addict on my own. I cannot do this on my own. So thank you for inviting me. This, you know, this saves my life. And I owe my life to this program. So thank you all for listening. And I hope that, you know, some of what I've shared may help you. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Sammy. That was just wonderful.